But what are those reserves in reserve for? Are they for today, when the price of gasoline averages at above $4 a gallon? Or are those reserves for, I don't know, the military maybe, if we get into a protracted war, a larger war than even the one in Iraq? I'm not sure I really understand all of this, but I want to give all of you an opportunity to comment on it. I want to know what you believe, what you think the answer to the problem is. Because I know we have to reduce consumption, but we are reducing consumption. It's not affecting the price. Jim from Michigan. Jim, welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com. Oops, Jim just got red dotted. Could somebody unred dot him, please?
I'm talking on a Mac computer and hope that you can hear me.
You know what? That's another beautiful thing. That's another beautiful thing. You're on a Mac and we can hear you. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. I really think I had an uncle back in the early 70s. He was paid to tell people to cap out their oil and not put it up, cap it up. If way back then we were capping oil, shouldn't we have been thinking at that time an alternate energy source other than just capping it up and letting things skyward high? We made an offer to Saudi Arabia. It didn't work out well. We're not as bad as they are in England. It's $11 or $12 a gallon. They're having street riots over gas. It's really horrible.
Sorry about that. I couldn't find the button to activate my microphone for a second. Well, look, I was unaware of that, but I do know that in the 70s, when Jimmy Carter was president, the great peanut farmer of the United States of America, and the prices rose, I know that there were tankers sitting out in the ocean not moving, not delivering product. And at that time, it seemed that the speculators were driving the price up artificially. And maybe that's what's happening today. But here's my problem. My problem is, back in the 70s, we faced an oil crisis. And as you said, we did nothing about it, Jim. Now, there are those like Newt Gingrich and Larry Kudlow and many others who are saying, release the reserves. The price of crude and therefore the price of gasoline at the pump will go down. Great. Are we going to do the same thing we did in the 1970s, if that happens, and start consuming oil at record amounts again? I mean, have we learned our lesson? Because this is my concern. If they find a way to reduce the price, if they find a way to increase the volume, that's great in the short term, but what about the long term? Do we then lack the incentive? Do we lack the will? Do we lack the political pressure to find a permanent solution? Or are we actually better off in the long run with the price of oil as high as it is? Malik in Indianapolis, welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com.
You know, Gary, I can't remember the 70s, sir. But I want to say to you, I really don't know what happened really in the 70s other than the history books, but this is my question. Why don't we just get serious about alternative forms of energy? I don't know why we've not gotten serious about that. And I think at this particular stage, we're not going to, we're going to suffer if we don't get serious about this, Gary. And another thing, as far as releasing the reserve, why don't we do that? Why can't we also tax these gas companies, these oil companies a little bit more? I mean, they're making record profits. I'm sure they have a little change they can spare for the good old USA. So, I mean, there are a lot of things we could do, but ultimately, we're going to have to change.
You know, I wonder, Malik, what you think about the suggestion that John McCain made that the government should pay basically a bounty, a reward to people who in private industry or just private citizens or companies come up with a solution to our energy problems. I kind of like the idea of the law of supply and demand working on our behalf. You would think that if I made a new widget that caused for the price of gasoline to go down, or for me to have an alternative form of energy, that I would reap the capitalistic rewards of that. But maybe for research and development, there has to be an incentive. There has to be money poured into that. What do you think of McCain's suggestion?
Well, I don't know what in the world you could do, Gary, that you should get $500 million for. I really don't. I don't know what in the world, not even that, but there should be some incentives from the government that encourages people to go into that direction and try to find some type of alternative forms of energy that would benefit the country as a whole. But what he was offering, I don't know, $500 million, I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And we already have the technology. We just need to get it out there in the market. That's all.
Yeah, and I'm wondering market forces are causing them not to do that, Malik. That's something to really question, because I know growing up in Detroit as I did, the auto industry actually pressured the railroad to take down the interurban that ran from an electric train from Detroit to Toledo, because they didn't want people taking the electric train. They wanted them buying the product, driving their cars. They didn't want alternatives. By the way, I heard a congressman today. Do you remember that congressman's name, Daniel? On the radio driving through Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania congressman. I actually wrote, my son actually wrote down his name so we could contact him.
It's like Chris Carney.
Chris Carney, he thinks that it was. Suggested that we do have to build, among other things, a rapid transit, a mass transit infrastructure in this country. Carney, thank you, Annabelle. Chris Carney, Carney. I'd like to have him on here. He's very articulate about this issue. Rebecca from West Virginia. Rebecca, welcome to News Talk Online on paltalk.com.